know what's a lot of fun? Winning 100% of your ranked games. You know what's even more fun? Doing it on something that used to be considered pretty troll. Hello everyone, my name is Borax the Mighty. In my entire League career, I've been a full main, so aka a support player. Sometimes playing the same old supports can get tiring, so I want to find out how viable and how much fun it can be to play other champions in the support role. Today we'll be looking at Maokai, the Twisted Tree Ant, and we'll rate how good he is as a support.
The grove beckons.
In the early game, I like to consider several things supports contribute to, including invading, laning, and lastly my personal favorite, roaming. When it comes to invading, Maokai can be quite decent with his point and click route. Like for example, if the enemy Caitlyn decides to run it down into your face level 1 so you can collect an easy 400 gold. Maokai is amazing at doing that, but I mean I guess most champions would be, to be honest. The downside of starting root is that it can harm your lane presence, as you would rather have your E sapling toss to assert dominance early on with the enemy. So, what I like to do at the start of the game is run out of base and start throwing my saplings and bushes where I think the enemy is going to start, in order to poke them from when they first get to lane and establish a lead that way. So, while he might not be the best at giving you a kill because his W is a bit short range and if the enemy is there you will just die, I will still give him an A for invading because I mean it is point and click CC, and if you go the other route of harassing with saplings, it's a very satisfying way to start off any game. I like to judge the overall laning phase based on 3 categories: poking, peeling, and all-inning. Poking on Maokai is fun. The whole concept of Maokai's poke is pretty much just saplings and bushes, and while yes, the enemy knows what you are doing, they will still be stupid and forget sometimes, and watching them get chunked while you don't really do anything is hilarious. The thing that can get frustrating is watching the saplings just run into the enemy wave, but if you put them more in the middle of the bush instead of the edge, it will usually work out in your favor. I also like to run Comet and Mana Flow Band with Spell Thief's Edge, just to maximize my early game harass. For poking in lane, I will give him a B+ rating, because it is very strong but relies on your enemies forgetting what saplings do, and it's hard to poke ranged enemies. While some champions only have a few abilities to peel with, Maokai actually has quite a few. Your Q little knockup can be a good skill to cancel other people's abilities or displace them, like for instance Leona E I believe you can cancel, or Tristana E. Your W root is a point and click CC ability that can help give your ADC room to breathe. Then you have your E, which, while in a bush, provides a nice slow and a good amount of damage, which is great for peeling. And lastly, you have your ultimate, which is a very slow moving but full lane route, which, if you can see the enemy coming in from afar, you can guarantee that the play gets cancelled if you cast this ability. And it's not that bad from close range either, although admittedly the route is much shorter, so it's only a bit of CC. Also for self-peel, your passive is surprisingly effective, as that percentage health heal will help you survive scraps for just that little bit of extra time that you need in order to use the rest of your abilities in many cases. Based on all of this, I will give Maokai a S rating for peeling, because while he has a ton of options, none of them are too crazy good when compared to champs like Thresh, Janna, or Lulu. For all-inning, Maokai is honestly a Chad. If you can get level 2 before your opponents do, a flash W combined with a sapling directly in their face as well as ignite and your ADC's damage will lead to so many early lane kills, and it cracks me up because the opponents don't really expect it. After the early levels, your all-in potential is still pretty solid because if you are against a squishy support champion, and if they are ever slightly caught out of position, or you have your flash up, a root followed up by a knockup backwards with your Q and a sapling toss will provide tons of CCs and slows, which will almost always guarantee a kill. In tank support matchups, the best way to all-end them is for them to walk into a bush with saplings, which will shred their health, slow them a bunch, and enable you to walk up to and root them, which should enable you to get the kill as well. For all-ending in lane, I will give Maokai an A+ rating. While it is strong, it's quite telegraphed in reality, so your opponents can make it impossible for you to all-end them if they are smart. Although I should mention, if they are being cowards and are sitting under the tower, Maokai is great at tower diving because you can start taking aggro for your team, then getting rid of it by using your W, which resets it as it makes you untargetable, which is quite a nice opportunity for him. This is also a great way to dodge any skill shots that might be shot at you. Before we give a rating for Maokai's ability to lane, let's talk about the matchups he might have to face. Well, everyone knows that playing against Morgana is the League of Legends equivalent of having to listen to an anti-vaxxer talk about the scientific studies they've read. She is also one of the hardest matchups for Maokai Support, as she can ignore all of your CC abilities, and once you're in her face, she will just kill you by binding your ass. Zyra is also an annoying matchup because they can sprout her plants and bushes where your saplings are stacked up and just proc them all, and it's advantageous for Zyra as it costs her less mana to do so, and that's why she makes me cry. Champions that make it difficult for Maokai to handle are long-range, coward poke supports that consist of Brand, Zillion, Vel'Koz, Xerath, and Lux, because, well, unless they are really stupid, they will make sure you can never get on top of them, and will make your lane a living hell for you to be in. Then there are some champions I think are pretty much just a stalemate, where either side will only get an advantage if they play better or if a mistake occurs. These are the hook champions and some engaged champions that can't really find an angle on you as long as you keep the bushes filled with saplings. There are also these enchanters here that have a lot of peel and harass that will be a hassle to deal with in lane, but they can't really kill you. Next up are the rest of the enchanters as well as Senna. These are the supports that you could insta-pop more so with Maokai Engage, so I think that they are a bit more of an easy matchup, and they have to be really scared of messing up in lane if you have flash up. I also put Taric in this tier because I faced up against one and put him in the goddamn dirt. He can't stun you because it's predictable, and you can just W it, and if you force the issue, he doesn't have a great response to it, and by the time his ulti comes down, you've probably already killed him and his ADC. Then there are some supports that will learn what a true power bottom is, which includes Alistar, Pantheon, and Shen, because when they go in on you, it's pretty predictable, and they will get absolutely melted by the saplings that you have prepared for them in a bush, so it's a doom sentence for them to do anything against you. Maokai also belongs here because you'll have seen this video and they will have not, so you have the advantage on him. Finally, we have some champions in the who plays these guys even tier because, well, I have not seen them in a long time and I just don't think they are really good supports at the moment. Well, maybe Rel and Seraphine are okay, but people think they are whack or boring. But if I see them again, I'll make sure to include them. Now, I am by no means an ADC expert, but I was advised to talk about who might work well with Maokai, who our opponent's Maokai does well into, and who is a tough cookie to crack. So feel free to give your own opinion in the comments below if you have more experience than I do with this. But in terms of ADCs that I like to play with, you have my number one favorite, which is Jhin. With your point and click route, you guarantee Jhin's W route as well. Make sure you don't instant Q like you normally would though, as you will knock your enemy out of Jhin's W, which I did way too many times, I'll admit. With your decent damage as a support, you will get the enemy low enough that Jhin's execute damage can really shine. Jinx and Caitlyn work similar with Chompers and the old Yordle trap, so they are a good combo as well. Then I like Lucian, Kalista, and Samira, who are all strong early lane champs that you can mess some people up with. Champions like Varus and Ashe are great post level 6 because with their ultimates and your ultimate you can layer so much CC it's a guaranteed kill. If they ult first, you can use your ult from far away, root the enemies with your W, and then your long range ult will root them once again, which is just nutty. Then there is MF, who, with your ultimate and her ultimate, you can make a decent combo of full-length damage where the enemies will be screwed. Then, when it comes to facing up against ADCs, everyone that doesn't have a dash is free money waiting to get collected, honestly, and champions with short-range dashes and jumps like Vayne, Lucian, and Kalista can't use that here, so their advantage to dodge your route doesn't really exist. Also, Vayne and Tristan are special because if you flash W Vayne or use it through stealth, she can't condemn you as you are untargetable, which is amazing, and I believe you can interrupt Tristana's jump like I said before if she holds it, if you use your Q in time. But be careful, she could be cheeky and jump into her own tower while you're teleporting to her with your W and make you die, which, while it sucks, is pretty hilarious. The other doofus that can do that is Ezreal, quite easily, which is why I don't like facing him. Then, Caitlyn, Varus, and Ashe are all annoying because of their insane range, and Miss Fortune has that crazy slow which can stop your engage that Ashe also utilizes. Finally, Sivir's Spell Shield pretty much nullifies your W route, I believe, but I have not yet tested that, but if it does, that means she can just walk away. And with Xayah, I don't know, if you're in her face, there's nothing really stopping her from ulting and using all of her feathers to murder you instantly if you go in on her, so I'm not very fond of that matchup in theory. Roaming on Maokai is Poggy Woggy. If you can get a flank off behind the enemy who's pushing non-stop because they're a buffoon, it's almost always a guaranteed kill. You also are great in jungle traps because of how strong your saplings are in bushes, which the jungle has a ton of. Oh, in case you don't know, Maokai's saplings deal double damage and last longer when placed in bushes, which is why you almost always want to place them there. unless you need the slow in a specific instance to make a play or to increase damage in a fight in the middle of the lane or river. For Maokai's ability to roam, I'll give him a S, because without flash it can be a bit difficult sometimes and it's not as good as some other supports that have really long engages, but it's a damn near one of the best roams out there because you can't miss your W as it's lock on. Based on everything we have talked about, I'd give Maokai Support a S rating in the early game. He has some very nice matchups which can help you snowball your lane, and if that's not really an option, his roams provide a lot of oomph to a fight where you can gain a lead that way, which is why he was my go-to choice when I was climbing my way to Plat finally before the season ends, which surprised even myself as I normally play these Will It Support videos in normals, but I was so confident in Maokai's strength I decided to take it into ranked, and well, let's just say it really paid off.
Hope blooms anew.
When it comes to late game, I like to look at some important support strengths, such as getting picks, peeling for your carries, and team fighting capabilities around objectives. Maokai is great at getting a pick. If you're in a bush that isn't warded and someone tries to face check you, you can almost kill them yourself if you have enough saplings. Well, because I build AP and it does some serious damage, which I find hilarious. If you have a teammate nearby, however, it's almost definitely a guaranteed kill, because the W root on anyone that isn't a tank followed up with your Q knockback is the perfect amount of CC you need to kill them almost instantly. For getting picks, I will give Maokai Support a S+ rating because his saplings provide crazy amounts of damage and guaranteed CC, which makes any unwarded bush that you are in almost a guaranteed death bush. In the late game, peeling as Maokai is just as good as in lane. It's actually crazy good because, well, it's guaranteed CC with his W, which cannot be understated of how strong that is. The assassin is trying to fly in and kill someone, you will root them and turn them into the person that is being assassinated. Another amazing aspect of Maokai Support is the fact that he can peel certain areas of the map in a way without being nearby because his saplings that you will be spamming out late game, with how short they are on cooldown, will be providing a 35% slow to anyone that they hit, which is pretty nice and can really shut down flanks in a way that most supports, outside of maybe Shaco or Teemo support, could do. For peeling, I will give Maokai a S+ rating once again in the late game, because I mean, it's just incredibly strong and quite a nuisance to deal with. League of Legends is honestly a pretty simplified game at this point. Either you're a team that looks for picks so that they have an advantage in the fight, which Maokai is both good at accomplishing and preventing, or you have a big old team fight to either secure or prevent Dragon Soul, or even for vision around Baron so you can start that objective. But let's be real, doing a Baron play like that is so hard to coordinate with the 4 random teammates that you have from solo queue, which often behave like they just escaped from Arkham Asylum and downloaded the game at their nearest local library in order to end people's game, and most importantly, never listen to any of my goddamn calls. But let's say by some miracle your team is able to get around an objective, probably by you telling them to come to it, which is a good idea about 40 seconds before it spawns, then Maokai Support is an absolute terror because if you build him AP like I usually do, what you want to do is be at that objective first, establish vision control with sweepers and pink wards, and throw out your saplings in every bush you think that enemies will walk through and prioritize the ones that they are most likely going into. The amount of damage enemies will take getting to the objectives from your saplings is ludicrous and will really help you swing a fight. Also, if you're close to getting in smite range of the objective, then you can use your giant ass ult to dissuade the enemy from coming in and stopping your team, and if they don't respect it, it will root all of them so you can turn that fight pretty easily and kill them all. For team fighting in the late game, I will give Maokai Support a whopping S+, and honestly, his prowess here is the exact reason why I was spamming him in solo queue. From the support position, it's usually quite difficult to have an impact on team fights super heavily, at least when it comes to the damage category, but Maokai can really dish it out, which is why I oftentimes was near the top of the leaderboard when it comes to damage dealt, which is funny because all of your damage comes from super easy to land abilities, so there's lowest chance of fucking it up. When it comes to late game, Maokai is an easy S+ for me. Outside of lane, Maokai is honestly unleashed and his saplings can really take over the map. You can really determine areas of the map where your team will have immense amounts of control, and that is something that can't be underappreciated, especially because you're doing it with 0% risk to your own life. I haven't even mentioned yet that Maokai is the best brush checker warder in the whole game. Like what other champion can throw these heat-seeking damage bombs that provide vision from the safety of their own team? What an absolute legend. Before we take a look at Maokai's ability to support overall, let's take a look at some of the runes and items that I enjoyed running. When it comes to runes, you could do the standard Aftershock path, but I believe that if you want a standard tank support, there are better options out there, so I'd only recommend this path if you think you're the only possible engager on your team and are kinda screwed anyways. The rune that I really enjoy taking and think really shines on Maokai Support is Comet, which is an almost guaranteed proc from all your abilities because they have some sort of CC and it really buffs up your poke. Mana Flow Band is nice so you don't go automatically, which can be quite a problem. Transcendence is also good to enable you to spam out more saplings later in the game, and then finally I would take Water Walking if you're looking to roam and snowball the game more, as the movement speed is nice to get around, and also because you're looking to fight in river a lot for objectives, the added combat strength here is another nice added bonus. However, if you are trying to scale with your team, then I really like Gathering Storm because A, all your abilities scale with AP, so you still do get good value from it, including 70% on ult, which is pretty nice, and B, you can ping that you have it during your solo queue games, which might have the added benefit of boosting the morale of your teammates and might make them a little bit less likely to FF. Which I mean is a pretty insane ability to have, because at the end of the day, League of Legends with randoms is almost more about mental than anything else. For my secondary runes, I tried some things out, but I really fell in love with Biscuit Delivery, as the extra sustain and mana is super clutch if you're trading early on, and perfect timing is nice, as having stasis on AP on Maokai is really essential in preventing yourself from getting absolutely one-shot, and it enables you to build a really nice item, which I'll talk about now as we transition into Maokai support items that I built. When it comes to what support gold item you should go for, it really depends on your support matchup, and if you believe you'll be able to hit them with saplings. A pretty decent rule of thumb is, if it's a ranged enemy support, go Relic Shield, and if they are melee, Spell Thief's Edge will be easier to stack so you can get the wards faster and you will do more damage to them. Next up, you want to buy some boots, and honestly this is where you have to do the most thinking. The whole team is AD, played as steel caps is great always. The enemy team has crazy amounts of CC, Merc Treads are great. If you're someone who loves to roam and think your lane is kinda hard to do anything in, Mobies are a pretty good choice as well. However, in most cases, I ended up going with two options. Sorc Shoes if the enemy was mostly squishies for maximum oomph, and if I had the gold to afford them at the time. Otherwise, in most of my games, I ended up going Ionian Boots or Lucidity, as they are the cheapest pair of shoes still to this day that you can get, and they give you the ability haste, which means more saplings, and they give you summoner spell haste, which means more flash Ws, so they are really nice. While boots are pretty situational, when it comes to mythics, I believe the number one choice by far is Imperial Mandate, as long as that item is at all still in the meta. Because all of your abilities slow and immobilize enemies, you'll be constantly applying the bonus damage on the item and giving your team movement speed and more damage if they hit them. What a great item, honestly. It makes Maokai feel quite solid as an AP choice. The other AP item they could maybe go for, if the entire enemy team is tanks, for some ungodly reason, is Leandri's English. But with this item, while yes, you'll be doing loads of damage, you'll be way more squishy and getting the item way later, as it's a whopping 700 more gold than Mandate, which is another reason Mandate is so good. Finally, if you're going tank Maokai, then I think Locket is a very solid mythic choice for all tank supports and should be the one you pick up. Like I've said throughout this video, I think AP Maokai is the way to go, and one of the big reasons for that, besides the fact that Mandate is solid, is that you can go Zhonya's Hourglass second item, which is honestly the best tank item in the whole game. If you want to engage, your game plan will be to flash W onto their carry and ult their entire team, and no amount of tankiness will save you in all honesty usually. But with Zhonya's, you can just become immune to damage for 2.5 seconds while the rest of your team follows up on your engage, and you can maybe get another rotation of spells off. After Zhonya's, if the enemy team has a lot of healing, I would recommend purchasing an Oblivion Orb if your team has little to no Grievous wounds, as you can proc it fairly easily with saplings, but otherwise, or after that 800 gold item purchase, I love building a Demonica's Brace, as with your saplings, you'll be doing crazy maximum health damage to enemies, and you will be gaining a bit of tankiness due to the passive and the HP from the item. Now that we have talked about Maokai support runes and items, let's talk about his overall ability to support. You know, I've played quite a few supports so far. There are the dogshit ones, the situationally passable ones, and the surprisingly decent ones. And the ones that are just straight up meta. And this is a champion that is just straight up legit meta, and for that reason I'll give him a S rating for his ability to support. And the reason it's not S+ is because I'm scared Riot is going to nerf him again, which they already tried doing, but I played it after the nerf and it still feels very solid. So I don't know if Maokai will always be as strong as a support, as I fear they will take a lot of power away from his sapling toss, his main support ability, and buff the rest of his abilities to try and bring him back to the top lane somehow. But until they do anything like that, I highly recommend you give Maokai Support a try, so I really thought playing him was an absolute treat. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, I hope you leave it a like or maybe subscribe if you are new, as that would mean the world to me. If you are already subscribed, then you are an absolute legend, and I appreciate you for coming back. Thank you once again for watching, and if you try out Maokai Support, I want to wish you good luck and to have fun. You will probably need it.